Imagine this. A young girl, barely 10 years old, walks into a towering glass-walled office building that seems way too big for someone her size. Her sneakers squeak on the polished marble floor as she looks up, clutching a worn-out backpack tightly against her chest. She doesn't belong here. Not with her faded sweater and patched-up jeans. The suited executives rushing past barely glance her way, too busy with their own important lives to notice the nervous little girl who seems out of place. But she's here for a reason bigger than anyone could guess. Her name is Emma Bennett. She's just lost her mother, and now, standing in this corporate jungle, she's looking for someone. A man she's never met but has heard about all her life. A man her mother told her to find before she passed away. That man is James Westbrook, the billionaire CEO of Westbrook Enterprises, a name that's recognized far and wide. He's a man known for his power, his wealth, and his no-nonsense approach to business. But to Emma, he's something else entirely. She's not here for business. She's here with a message from her mother. Emma approaches the imposing front desk, her heart racing, her hands trembling just a little. The receptionist looks up, perfectly polished with a raised eyebrow, eyeing this little girl who doesn't seem to fit into this world. "Can I help you, young lady?" she asks, her tone polite but with a hint of doubt, as if she can't quite believe this girl has any business being here. Emma swallows hard but keeps her chin up. "I need to see Mr. Westbrook," she says, her voice small but steady. "It's important." The receptionist smiles, though it's the kind of smile grown-ups give when they think a kid doesn't really understand the world. "I'm afraid Mr. Westbrook is very busy today. Maybe your parents could call to schedule an appointment." But Emma doesn't back down. She's been through too much already. Losing her mother was the hardest thing she's ever faced, and she's not about to give up now. "Please," she says, her voice catching slightly. "It's about my mom. She passed away last week. Before she died, she told me to find him. She said to tell him that she had the same tattoo as him." Those words hang in the air, and for the first time, the receptionist's expression softens. There's something about the way Emma says it, something in her earnest eyes, that makes the woman pause. Maybe this isn't just another child wondering where she shouldn't be. Maybe there's more to this story. "Wait here," the receptionist finally says, picking up the phone. What Emma doesn't know is that upstairs, in his top-floor office, with a breathtaking view of the city, James Westbrook is about to have his entire world turned upside down. The powerful CEO who runs an empire, who makes multi-million-dollar decisions every day, is completely unprepared for the small girl who's about to walk into his life. And when she does, everything he thought he knew will be challenged. 20 minutes later, Emma finds herself sitting in a chair that feels far too big for her in a massive office with floor-to-ceiling windows. The view outside is stunning, but her eyes are fixed on the man sitting across from her. James Westbrook, the billionaire, the man her mother spoke of in hushed tones but never revealed much about. He looks just like she imagined from the magazine covers. Tall, sharp suit, intense blue eyes that seem to see everything. When he finally speaks, his voice is deep, controlled. "I was told you wanted to see me about a tattoo," he says, his tone curious but cautious. Emma nods, suddenly feeling all the weight of her words as she points to his wrist, where the edge of an intricate tattoo is barely visible beneath his shirt cuff. "My mom had one just like yours," she says quietly. "Before she died, she told me to find the man with the same tattoo." For a moment, something flickers across his face. A flash of recognition, maybe even shock. But it's gone so quickly, Emma isn't sure she saw it at all. His expression stays cool, unreadable, as he leans forward slightly. "What was your mother's name?" "Clara Bennett," Emma replies, her voice just above a whisper. The name hangs in the air between them like a ghost. James's face doesn't change, but his knuckles tighten as he grips the edge of his desk. There's a long pause, a silence so heavy that Emma can feel her heart pounding in her chest. She doesn't know what to expect next. Will he send her away? Will he even remember her mother? Finally, he asks the question she's been dreading. "Where is your father?" Emma stares down at her hands, her fingers twisting together in her lap. "I never had one," she says softly. "It was always just me and Mom." Another long silence stretches between them. Then, without warning, James presses the button on his desk. "Cancel my meetings for the afternoon," he instructs. In a voice that leaves no room for argument, he turns back to Emma, his gaze intense, but no longer cold. "I think we need to talk, but not here." And just like that, the powerful billionaire, CEO, is no longer in control of the situation. A small girl has walked into his world, carrying a piece of his past he thought he'd left behind. A past tied to a woman he once knew, a woman who had the same tattoo as him. As they leave the office, together, Emma's mind is racing with questions. What does he know about her mother? Why did her mom tell her to find this man? And what happens next? All she knows for sure is that this meeting, this moment, has already changed everything. But one thing still lingers, unanswered and unresolved. Why didn't he ever look for them? Why did her mother tell her to find him only after she was gone? The answers are just beginning to unfold. James Westbrook's car glides smoothly through the city streets, but inside the vehicle, the silence is thick. Emma sits next to him in the back seat, her small hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring out the window. She's not used to this kind of luxury. The sleek black leather seats, the tinted windows, the quiet hum of the engine. Everything feels surreal, yet here she is, sitting next to a man she's only ever heard about. A man her mother kept hidden from her, for reasons Emma still doesn't understand. James is staring straight ahead, his jaw tight, lost in thought. He doesn't say a word, and Emma isn't sure if she should speak either. She can sense that whatever's going on in his mind, it's something heavy, maybe even painful, but she doesn't know him well enough to ask. And besides, she's got enough questions of her own, swirling around in her head. They pull up to a house. No, not a house. A mansion. It's the kind of place Emma's only ever seen in movies, with perfectly manicured lawns and towering pillars at the front. The car stops, and the driver opens the door for them. James steps out first, and Emma hesitates for just a second before following. Inside, the mansion is even more impressive. The ceilings are impossibly high. The furniture looks like it costs more than anything Emma's ever owned. And everything is spotless, like it's waiting for a magazine photo shoot. But it doesn't feel warm. It doesn't feel like a home. James leads her into a study, and for the first time since they left the office, he speaks. "Sit down," he says, his voice softer now, almost gentle. Emma sits on the edge of an armchair, her legs barely reaching the floor, while James settles into a chair across from her. For a moment, he just looks at her, like he's searching for something in her face, something familiar. "Clara Bennett," he says, almost to himself, his eyes distant. "I haven't heard that name in over 10 years. Emma looks up at him, surprised. "You knew my mum." James nods slowly, but there's a sadness in his eyes that wasn't there before. "We were close a long time ago, but things got complicated." Emma's heart pounds in her chest. This is what she's been waiting for. Answers. Why didn't she ever tell me about you? Why didn't you ever come to see us? James leans back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. It's not that simple, Emma. Your mother and I, we had a past. A complicated one. She left without saying goodbye, and I didn't know where she went. I didn't even know you existed. Emma feels a lump rise in her throat. All those years, it was just her and her mom, struggling to get by, while this man, this billionaire, was out there, living his life without them, without even knowing about them. She told me to find you, Emma says quietly, her voice trembling. She said you'd understand. James closes his eyes for a moment, like he's trying to block out the pain. I wish I had known sooner, he says, his voice rough. I wish I could have been there for both of you. There's a long silence between them, and for the first time, Emma sees something she didn't expect. Vulnerability. This man, who seems so strong, so powerful, is just as lost in all of this as she is. But there's something else on Emma's mind, something that's been bothering her ever since her mother passed. Before she died, she told me there was a reason she never came back, something she was running from. James's expression changes, his face tightening, with an emotion Emma can't quite read. Your mother was running from a lot of things, he says carefully. But most of all, she was running from a secret that could ruin a lot of lives, including yours. Emma's eyes widen. What secret? James leans forward, his eyes locking onto hers. There are people who would do anything to keep certain truths hidden. People with power, people with influence. Your mother knew something she wasn't supposed to, and when she left, she took that secret with her. Emma feels a chill run down her spine. What was it? What did she know? James hesitates, as if weighing whether or not to tell her. It's better if you don't know, he says finally, his voice firm. The less you know, the safer you'll be. But Emma isn't backing down. Not now. I've already lost my mom. I deserve to know the truth. James looks at her, his expression softening. You remind me of her, he says quietly. Stubborn. Brave. Just then, the door to the study swings open, and a man walks in. A man Emma's never seen before. He's tall, with sharp features, and a cold, calculating look in his eyes. He glances at Emma for only a second before turning his attention to James. We have a problem, the man says, his voice low but tense. James stands up, his whole demeanor shifting in an instant. He's back to being the powerful CEO, the man, in control. What is it? The man glances at Emma again, then leans in closer to James, lowering his voice. Someone's been asking questions about Clara, about the tattoo. James's face goes pale. For the first time since Emma met him, he looks afraid. Emma's heart races as she watches them, feeling the weight of the situation sinking in. Her mom's death, the tattoo, the secret, it's all connected. But how? And who's looking for them? As the tension in the room builds, James finally looks at Emma. We're running out of time, he says, his voice urgent. I promised your mother I'd keep you safe, but you need to trust me now. Emma nods, her pulse quickening. She doesn't know what's coming, but she knows one thing for sure. Whatever secret her mother was hiding, it's about to come crashing into her life, and there's no turning back. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as the weight of James's words sank in. Someone was looking for them. Someone dangerous. She stared at the man who had just entered the room, trying to read the tension between him and James. There was more going on here than she understood. But one thing was clear. Her mother's secret wasn't just a small piece of family history. It was something that could change everything. James turned to the man and said, Get the security team ready. No one comes in or out without my approval. The man nodded and quickly left the room, leaving Emma alone with James again. She could see the fear in his eyes, despite the calm and collected front he was putting on. He had promised to protect her, but now, for the first time, she wondered if he could. James sat back down and took a deep breath. Your mother was involved in something much bigger than either of us realized. She uncovered information that some very powerful people didn't want to get out. What kind of information? Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. James hesitated before answering, choosing his words carefully. It's about the company. My company. Years ago, when I was first starting out, we made deals. Deals with people who had influence, in ways you can't imagine. It was all business, but your mother, she found out the truth. About where the money came from, who we were really working with. She knew it wasn't right. She wanted to expose it. Emma's eyes widened. So she ran. To protect herself. James nodded. She tried to run. But those people, they don't let go easily. She thought disappearing would keep you safe, but it only delayed things. They've been looking for her, and now they're looking for you. Emma felt her stomach drop. All those years of struggling, thinking her mother had just made bad choices, when in reality, she had been protecting her from something much worse. Why didn't she tell me any of this? Emma's voice cracked with emotion. She was trying to protect you? James said softly. The less you knew, the safer you were. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. But now they know I'm here. They know I'm with you. James nodded grimly. Yes. And they'll stop at nothing to get what they want. A sudden knock at the door made them both jump. James stood up, motioning for Emma to stay behind him. The door opened slowly, revealing the man from earlier. His expression was grim. They're here, he said simply. James cursed under his breath. Get Emma out of here, he ordered. Take her to the safe house. I'll deal with them. No, Emma protested. I'm not leaving you. I need to know what's going on. James turned to her, his face full of urgency. Emma, you don't understand. These people, they'll stop at nothing. You need to be safe. That's all that matters right now. But Emma shook her head. I'm not running away. Not like my mom did. I need to face this. James looked at her, and for a moment, there was a flash of something like pride in his eyes. You're stronger than I thought, he said quietly. Just like your mother. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway, growing louder by the second. James's body tensed. It's too late. They're here. The door burst open, and a group of men in dark suits stormed in. Emma's heart raced as she backed up, her eyes wide with fear. One of the men stepped forward, his gaze cold and calculating. Mr. Westbrook, he said in a low, dangerous voice, we've come for what's ours. James squared his shoulders, standing between Emma and the men. You're not taking her, he said, his voice firm. The man smirked. We don't need her. We need the information her mother had. Hand it over and no one gets hurt. Emma's mind raced. Information? What information? Then it hit her. The tattoo. Her mother's tattoo. It had always seemed strange to her. But now she realized it wasn't just a tattoo. It was a code. A key to whatever secret her mother had uncovered. I don't know what you're talking about, James said, his voice steady. But Emma could see the fear in his eyes. The man took a step closer. Don't play games with me, Westbrook. We know Clara left something behind. Something valuable. And we know you've been hiding it. James clenched his fists. I don't have it, but Emma did. She could feel the truth in her bones. Her mother had left the secret with her, hidden in plain sight. Without thinking, she stepped forward, pulling up the sleeve of her sweater to reveal the tattoo on her wrist. the same tattoo her mother had. The men's eyes locked onto it instantly. "There it is," the leader said, his voice filled with triumph. "The key!" James's eyes widened in shock as he realized what was happening. "Emma." "No." But it was too late. The men advanced, grabbing Emma's arm. She struggled, but they were too strong. "Let her go," James shouted, lunging forward. But the men held him back. As Emma was pulled toward the door, she looked back at James, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered. But just as the men reached the threshold, something unexpected happened. The man holding Emma suddenly froze, his grip loosening. The others looked at each other in confusion. Then, in a split second, the men were surrounded by security guards, by police, by forces Emma didn't even know were there. James had planned for this. He had called for backup. And just like that, the men were taken down, one by one. Emma collapsed into James's arms, tears streaming down her face. "It's over," he whispered, holding her tight. "You're safe now, and for the first time in a long time." Emma believed him.